Welcome to Drinking Bros, presented by GhostBed.com.
Welcome to Drinkin' Bros. Kids, we got a fine Monday morning here. Before we welcome our guest in, you'll notice my co-host is missing in action today. That action happens to be in Washington, D.C. You guys get your wish, okay? We've heard about it for years and years and years. Dude, we got to get Dan on Tim Pool. We got to get Dan on Tim Pool. Tim Pool reached out. Dan is recording with Tim Pool tonight in Washington, D.C. That episode will probably drop either late tonight or early tomorrow. I'm not sure what his schedule is as far as pre-recording and all that other stuff. However, we have a very interesting show today. We've got David Pogue on from CBS News Sunday Morning, Emmy winner. New York Times best-selling author. You've got to look. I've got the author thing. I've got the New York Times bestseller. I don't have the Emmy though. Congratulations. Welcome to the show, David Pogue. How are you?
Thank you very much. I'm good.
Like I was saying right before we went on, your Zoom is great. Usually people look like they're in Al Jazeera. Clearly you're ready for prime time here, and CBS has got you all dialed in here.
You know, B&H Photo Video, they have a kit. There's a flat panel LED light here, got a USB mic, and, you do this all pandemic long, the cost averages out.
I know. And now that you look at it, because it depends on where your mindset is out of whether we're out of the pandemic or still in it, the way the video quality is and the way that it's dialed in, it's starting to just get easier and easier. So then rather to fly around to Austin, Texas, or wherever you are, you're like, I think I could still do this interview from my living room.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, for the CBS Sunday morning stories that we do at the beginning of the pandemic, all the interviews we did were over Zoom. Mm-hmm. So we had to develop quickly all these, what's the journalistic practice of letting the audience know that we're not actually there and yet still having it look decent. And eventually now we can fly again for stories, but there's still, a Zoom interview per story, among 3 or 4 other interviews, just because people are used to it. Nobody minds.
Yeah, nobody's starting to mind. The quality's getting better. And let's face it, it cuts down on production costs, which I'm sure the network is looking at that bottom line at the end of the day going, hey, David, noticed a lot of meals here at French Laundry when you were out in Santa Barbara. Can we cut back on that? That'd be great.
Yeah, no, they don't mind the cost savings a bit.
No, not at all. So we're here to talk about your new book today, How to Prepare for Climate Change. First of all, do you believe in it? Yes or no, David? Because there it is right there. There it is. My wife says like recycling makes America look poor. That's why she hates to do it. Do you agree with that? Yes or no?
Makes America look poor?
Poor, yeah. She's like, look, we still want to look rich. Can we just not recycle? That'd be great. Be super great.
I mean, the whole plastic thing is another entire issue. There is a link with climate change, but plastic in the ocean is just, I mean, there's particles of plastic in our drinking water now, in our food. They found it in the human placenta. That's just making us sick. That's a kind of a different issue. But yeah, I mean, when you say, do you believe in climate change? I think
I'm totally kidding, by the way. And I think people are.
No, it's a superb question.
No, but people are absolute morons if you don't think it's happening. It's just the rate at which it's happening and the speed and what you believe in, I guess, is kind of the difference when you talk to people.
Yeah, no, I think you took the words right out of my mouth. I think these days, the phrase climate denier no longer means somebody who doesn't think anything is changing. Like you'd have a hard time finding someone who says, oh no, this weather, these fires, these hurricanes, exactly the same as they were in the 80s. Right. I mean, the number of people who don't notice anything is very, very small. These days, what you call a climate denier might be somebody who says, the climate is changing, but it's not human caused. It's a part of a natural cycle. Those numbers of people are going down too. It's something like 29% of Americans now. And for a point of reference, 20% of Americans believe that aliens walk among us. So
yeah. Look, I'm one of them. And I see a lot of these folks at Walmart, and that's where I believe that aliens might be walking among us. where you see a lot of dirty Crocs and you were like, man, this is not the time for Crocs right now, but you're doing it. Does that mean you're from another planet? As far as climate change is concerned, here's the thing that I look at it, the way I look at it kind of overall is, obviously it is happening. Obviously it is real. But until we get China or India to comply with the rest of the standards that we're setting for ourselves or other countries, I don't know how we fix any of this globally.
Oh, 100%. I mean, the US, India, and China are the big three. And actually, the climate scientist Michael Mann has a new book out that makes, however you feel about it, they make kind of a great point, which is that all this stuff about we, the people, should recycle and take public transportation and change our light bulbs to LEDs. Yeah, that's all a big fake out by the industries and the institutions that are really doing the emissions, which is governments and corporations. They're just trying to make it think it's our fault. Obviously we should all do what we can, but the big guns that have to change are the countries and the corporations for sure. But to answer your question, both India and China are in the Paris Accord. They do agree. They have committed. The president of China just a couple months ago said by 2060, they intend to be off of coal entirely. So they are making goals. India's made tremendous progress. China and India will both have among the largest solar installations ever built. I mean, entire deserts full. So there's some gigantic progress going on there.
Now, my question to you is, do you believe it? Because right now we're going through this pandemic that's killed over 7 million people that, in my personal belief, probably came from a lab in Wuhan. They weren't the most honest about and forthright about where it came from, how it got started, and they certainly didn't give us enough access when we went over there to do the old Biden report on it. Do you believe that they actually care about climate change?
Yeah, I do. It's follow the money, right? Who is the number one manufacturer? What country stands the most to profit from a decarbonization of the planet that is moving off of coal and oil into solar? It's China. They're the biggest manufacturer of solar panels and gear by a huge margin. And so every panel they sell is more money to China. So yeah, I do. And also the history of China is kind of interesting. They have a lot of coal, which is why they're still using a lot of coal. Mm-hmm. But the whole thing with China is that the lower classes, the masses and masses, billions of poor, are slowly rising into the middle class. They're starting to eat beef. They're starting to own cars. They're starting to become wealthy enough that they mind smog. They mind the pollution. They mind the heat, and they're starting to care. So they're starting to put pressure on their institutions and their governments to get cleaner. And you could argue the same thing in India. I mean, they don't want to live in a hellhole.
Yeah. It's funny you said, though, money. You're the first person that's come on and said money for China regarding climate. Winner, chicken dinner on that one, because that's all they give a shit about. So, by the way, David, you're allowed to say whatever you want on this. If you want to say motherfucker, because I know you don't get to say that on air, you can. Feel free. Go scorched earth today. But you're the first person that's actually come on and said, yeah, they'll probably change because of money and they like money. Yes, you're right. And I think that's the only driving force with China. So that's a very honest answer. I've not heard that yet. Usually people will dance, oh yeah, no, China's great. Super friendly and honest people to work with. And they're rad. I'm sure we'll be bros with Xi and all those guys pretty soon. But yeah, you're right, money. Because what I started to notice, as the climate was changing, was they were buying up a lot of real estate in Canada. Do you talk about that in your book?
I do. That's in the introduction. Like the whole point is, the whole point of this book, How to Prepare for Climate Change, is how should you prepare? Not just, it's not about change your light bulbs and eat less red meat and fly less. That's not this book. This book is about, check out your insurance. Are you prepared for the flooding? How do you talk to your kids? Where should you live if you have a choice? Where do you invest to make money off the great decarbonization? It's every possible way that you can prepare for what we know is inevitable, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm trying to make the point in the introduction that the smart people are already doing it. Like Starbucks is, they can't grow coffee where they used to. The climate doesn't support it. So they're funding these massive South American field seeding programs where they move higher up the mountain and stuff like that. And China, as you say, is buying up massive amounts of real estate around the world in northern areas that they know are going to be the new temperate zones, right? Oh my gosh, what's the statistic in Vancouver? It's something like 2/3 of all commercial real estate is now owned by Chinese interests.
Yeah,
in Canada,
and that's true. Yeah. So when I was in Vancouver, it's driving the cost of housing up as well, because they're buying up everything. And I mean, it's crazy. I've said this story before, but I'll say it again. I was doing a gig in Vancouver, and super unbelievably nice people, like to the point where it's a stereotype. If I would have wrote my cab driver into a script in Hollywood, they would have been like, "Hey, dude, a little too nice, a little too nice." I was like, "No, it's just Canada." With that, he was pointing out all the areas that Chinese developers had been buying up commercial real estate. And he was also pointing out how much real estate was just for neighborhoods and things like that, and residential. And as he was doing it, each house was like 1.2. And keep in mind, this is probably like maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And it was 1.2 for like a 1,400 square foot house and things like that. And then when he dropped me off at the hotel, he said, "While you're here, stop at this Tim Hortons or this Tim Hortons or whatever." And I was like, "Oh, is that?" I mean, it's just a chain. I was like, "Why would I do that?" And he goes, "Well, I own them." And I'm like, "You own both of those?" And he goes, Yeah, I own both of those." And I go, "Well, why are you driving a cab?" And he goes, "Well, I have to because of how much the real estate is here. I don't really have a choice. And I got kids in college." And he pointed out the house where he lived, which was super trusting because we don't know what I do at night. I could have came to his house and stolen some soup out of his fridge. I didn't, obviously, but he pointed out where his house was. That's how nice it was. And he said that his house was, I think, 1.4, 1.6. And I mean, it was, no bigger than a shack where you were just like, man, you're probably looking at 1,200 square feet, 1,000 square feet. I've seen condos bigger than that place, for Christ's sake. So that's been going on for years and years and years. Where else is China looking to buy?
And by the way, I was just flipping through the book. I can't remember the stat, but it's something astonishing. It's like 34% of all residential real estate in Vancouver, and Toronto is up there. Mm-hmm. So anywhere northern, there's a lot of investment in Greenland. And even Siberia, places that used to be considered frozen, growthless, unfarmable, is now starting to look like really sweet farmland. So there are 100 different areas in Greenland that are now being developed as agricultural zones. So there's something going on.
Yeah, there's a reason Trump wanted to buy it. Like, when you want to buy up a country,
do it.
I know.
Yeah.
Obviously, they wouldn't let him, but you're right. That's next. With the average temperature changing, 1.4 degrees every 100 years, getting hotter, something like that. How do you convince kids or millennials to give a shit about that? Where they're like, "Oh, sweet. What's another 1.4 degree for another 100 years? Like, I'll be dead by then. I don't give a shit."
Well, it's my impression that the younger you are, the more concerned you are. I think it's the old guard that's got the larger percentage of people who say, "Well, we're going to be dead. Who cares?" I mean, maybe I'm just speaking because I have three children ranging from 16 to 24, and they're not only depressed about all this, but clearly people their age resent how we did nothing to prevent it when we had the chance. I mean, it's like if it would cost us all something to fix the problem, if it meant giving up our lifestyle in a significant way, and I mean, some would argue that it does, but in other ways, this is a gigantic economic possibility. Already, the solar industry is bigger than the entire coal industry. I'm not exactly sure why we're fighting for, great people, but a very small number of jobs there.
Sure.
there are going to be trillions of dollars changing hands as we decarbonize. Entire new industries. I mean, the electric car thing alone, and solar and wind and all these new power generating. There are new nuclear methods that don't involve uranium, so that don't involve the danger and the meltdowns and the disposal problems. There are new projects there. All of this means money. All of this means money changing hands, new people with the opportunity to build up their wealth. I'm sure you've heard about this concept of a carbon pricing scheme where the biggest polluters would have to pay into a fund.
Yep.
So that's an incentive for everybody to pollute less. Well, who gets the money in that fund? Well, there's this amazing bipartisan program of both prominent Republicans and prominent Democrats to put in place a scheme like this. And who gets the money? We do. They literally put money into the citizens' bank accounts. That would be a popular program. So the change to a decarbonized world to solve the climate crisis doesn't mean we're all going to become, Amish people. It means a great deal of innovation and growth and investment, as I see it.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of Amish, it's like I'm on a permanent rumspring up in this piece, but I don't know how you get everybody to agree on this and actually do something about it. There's so many people that are skeptical about the government today, that the government would actually give you money back. I'm not sure if you have enough people who will buy into the notion that the government is going to help you out and give you money. I was watching Kramer the other night on CNBC, and he was talking about, at this current rate, the Social Security is going to run out pretty soon. I don't know if you're there yet. Probably not. But
not yet.
Yeah, we've all put money in where it's just like, all right, am I going to get this? Even I'm skeptical, and I don't know. Climate change is another one where, how do you determine that, and how are they going to judge it? Based on your car or how much what you're throwing away? How is that going to work financially? Because I don't know this the way that you do. I
mean, the good thing about the likelihood of a carbon pricing scheme is that it's been done before, right? That's how we fixed the acid rain problem. We had these credits that polluting companies can buy them from cleaner companies. So everybody wins. Everybody has a financial incentive to pollute less. And if you can't do it and you're a rich company, then you pay companies who are polluting less. And it distributes the wealth a little more easily. But you're right. I mean, we live in a super polarized society where, the government is barely functional because everybody's hyper political. And here's David Pogue solving the country's problems. Ready? I think there should be more of an emphasis in government on, let's try this as a pilot program. Like every policy, every law they want to pass, every new program they want to put in place, try it. Right now, the reason it doesn't pass is because the other side is, that won't work. That'll make more people poor. That'll make more people sick. Try it. Give it a 2-year pilot. And if you're right, if it was a mistake, undo it. I mean, a lot of things could be done that way.
I 100% agree with you. I like that you referred to yourself in the third person. I'm always a big fan of that on this show because Ross Patterson loves that. There's nothing that Ross Patterson loves more in this life than referring to himself in the third person. So you and I are on that team together for sure. And I'm with you. With a lot of these programs, let's give it a shot and see what happens and not be so hard on the other side. Because if you don't, then you're just going to be stuck in this quagmire forever of this is what I believe in, or one side believes in everything else. Yeah. Yes, give it a shot and see what happens. I'm with you there. But it can correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't most of this pollution that's going into the air as far as climate change is concerned, isn't it revolved around these tankers, these ocean crossing tankers that emit 125 million tons of CO2 per year? Isn't that part of it? And how do you solve that as well, I guess?
Yeah, it's really the pie chart of where these climate change greenhouse gas emissions are coming from is basically in thirds. And one is transportation. So it's all the airplanes and the ships and the cars. One is agriculture. So it's all the cows and the fertilizer. and then one is manufacturing and industrial. And residential is scattered across those three. The cow thing that thing really blew my mind when I was researching this book.
Oh,
one
boy.
cow
Yep.
One cow burps up 12 gallons an hour of methane. And methane, also known as natural gas, is about 80 times worse than carbon dioxide in terms of its climate change. Like one cow.
Yeah.
And here's another statistic that blew my mind. A third of the planet's surface that is not frozen is cow grazing land. That's how resource intensive these animals are. And that's why they're burning down the rainforest in South America, right? To make new cow grazing land.
Yeah.
So it's just an unbelievable disaster in terms of climate change. Now, they've got some really clever things going. They're trying to feed them new foods, like seaweed has been promising. They don't fart and burp as much. And they're trying to add additives to their food so they won't belch up quite as much. But anyway, that's why the agricultural sector is as big as it is, that cattle alone are something like 9% of all global warming gases. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. And I know Bill Gates is trying to do something about it, where he's buying up all this farmland. And look, he also says that it's just an investment in his portfolio, which is real convenient. But oh no, that's just part of my investment portfolio. But he's also trying to make this new kind of meat. Do you talk about that in the book as well, where he's trying to change the beef industry as a whole so that it isn't cows out in fields farting into the air and then destroying the atmosphere?
I haven't heard of his program. I did write about the rise of, the Impossible Burger and Beyond Meat, those two companies that make plant-based hamburgers and now sausage that tastes exactly like the best burger you've ever had, but there's no beef involved. I mean, when it's raw, it's even bloody, like when you put ground beef. I love those things, and the sales are going crazy. I mean, they really have a hit on their hands.
Well, they sold out. Yeah, with Burger King. Remember when Burger King did it with Whoppers? Right. They were completely sold out, and they were like, "Oh shit, now what?" And they didn't have enough.
It's unbelievable. I mean, and when you look at the ingredients, it's not this long list of grisly chemicals. It's like pea protein, soy protein. It's like a few ingredients. So I don't know how they combine a few ingredients like that into something that looks just like a burger and tastes like a burger. It's a mind blower to me. But the other thing that people are working on is, as gross as this sounds, growing meat in the lab.
Yes.
As a muscle.
Yep.
Right. Without there being any animal involved. And even though that sounds gross, it's not as gross as if you've ever seen how beef is actually butchered and ground up and brought to you.
Yeah. Look,
it's horrifying.
Yeah, some say horrifying. Some say it's a kink. Whatever you're into. Again, we don't kink shame on the show. Never have, never will. But with that, I think it's KFC who's been doing that with chickens for years, where it's like, these weird chickens that are 9 heads or something like that, or they're headless. I know they've been doing it with other meats. They just haven't done it with cows yet, and that's something they're working on. By the way, Bill Gates' thing is called synthetic beef, by the way. That's what he's working on. It's a plant-based meat, and it's based off of that. It looks similar to ground beef. I know 60 Minutes did a piece on it a few months back with B. Coops. Or Anderson Cooper. I got the wrong Coops there. Anderson Cooper, A. Coops was doing that story.
Yeah, ever since Beyond Meat and Impossible Burger had these mega hits and became super profitable, all the big conglomerates, Tyson and Nestle and Kroger, they're all developing their own plant-based burgers. And for your viewers and listeners who don't know, these are not plant burgers. These are not like veggie burgers. These are not those gross mealy. These, I mean, you put that on a bun and ketchup and pickle, you cannot distinguish it from like the best burger you've ever had.
It was pretty close. I had the Impossible Burger. We did it on the show, and
oh yeah,
yeah, it was pretty close. We know some other guys like Mountain Primal and those guys though that truly have the best meat on the planet, and there is a little noticeable difference where you're just like, all right, I'd still like to kill that animal and have it, but that's just me. That's just me. But I think everybody else
might not have enough really good burgers to have that cultivated palate.
Oh yeah, we're disgusting, dude. It's Drinking Bros. Like that's the first thing we do. We'll go out and get rocked, and then we'll get burgers later on that night. I'm even super judgmental about where I live, like Texas, for example. You got to go to Whataburger. It's the best. It's not the best. I'm sorry, Texas. It is not the best. So Pete Terry's next door. I like that better. Nothing I can do about that. But yeah, I can go down a list of burgers all day long. I mean, shit, we can get Guy Fieri and go Flavor Town real quick, and I'm sure he can tell you where it is. But as far as meat goes, that is very, very close. I will say this. Yes, the Impossible Burger was pretty close to it, where I was like, all right, over time, because that's essentially what all this is over time, getting people's taste adjusted to it and used to it. Me, for example, I've got two kids. One is 3 and the other is 7. Now, me as a kid, I remember just sitting down with a 2-liter of grape Fanta and just going to town, right? We're from Georgia. My parents were cool, and they were like, oh, yeah, it's fine. And we can have McDonald's like 3 times a week, 4 times a week. Who cares? As you get older, you're like, oh, all the studies come out, and now we're an obese society and everything else. You're like, man, I can't believe I ate and drank all that as a kid. Now, for my generation, I've passed it down to my kids where, like, they don't really like soda. So even when they have it, which is rare, they're like, man, this tastes spicy because I'm used to drinking like natural juices and things like that. And it's just because I don't want them to be 300 or 400 pounds. You know what I'm saying? But like, it does change generation by generation. So you are right. And that goes with everything. Climate change, this, and all that stuff. I just wonder when it is and when we'll get there. And with me, like at my age, whether or not I'll care. Like in particular, because I'm going to die and I won't be here for that. Kind of just rather want to shove that off to my kids. But you do have to set the plan in motion now, right?
There's sort of 2 huge forces at work, right? The first is people don't like change. People never like change. We've been terrified of every change. I mean, when the steam engine, the train, was invented, 200 years ago, there were literally arguments in the newspaper that you shouldn't ride them because it would cause locomotion madness. That is, human beings had never gone 50 miles an hour before in the history of humanity. And we didn't know what to expect. So people were said to go insane when they rode trains. And for women, there was literally an article in a German medical journal that said, if you ride a steam train, your uterus will fall out. Hate when that happens.
We still can't disprove that one. We've never had we've never had one scientist come forward and say, hey, we've disproven that. And also shout out to Robert Fulton for creating that steam engine. You gotta give our old school homies some love too.
But yeah, so and the microwave, remember the microwave is supposed to give you cancer. I mean, every new development terrifies us. And it's probably a good evolutionary instinct, right? The Neanderthal guys didn't want to go into the darkened cave. They were afraid of new dark things because they might get eaten and killed. So on one side, there's the fear of change, the fear of the unknown, fully reasonable. But on the other side, there is the prospect of making things better, making things cleaner. I'm sure nobody would object to the air being cleaner and to saving money. Here's I know I'm going on and on with this answer, but
good.
Think about
podcast is.
All right, so it can play on forever. So think about utility companies, the electric company, right? So right now, when they get power from coal and oil, they have to pay for the coal and the oil. Then they have to pay to process it. Then they have to pay to abide by regulations to release the emissions clean enough.
Yep.
And then you are ultimately paying for all that, right? So if these utilities are switching to solar and wind, which they are en masse, why do you think they're doing that? Because they're big-hearted altruists who love us? No, because now they eliminate the cost of the raw materials, they eliminate the cost of the processing, they eliminate the cost of obeying the regulations, and they're not going to lower our prices.
No, not a prayer.
They're going to get the same profits from us, but their costs are going to go way, way down. So that's on the other side. On the other side, you have people who stand to gain in addition to people who care about, and also electric cars are freaking fun, man.
They're blast.
So fun to drive. So two giant forces head to head, but I think that the forces of becoming cleaner are probably going to win. There's just too many people who stand to gain. And that's, I'm being really cynical here. I mean, obviously there are people who just think it's the right thing to do and think about their grandchildren and blah, blah, blah. But there's plenty of people who will stand to gain while they're still alive right now.
They are. It's just cutting out all those middlemen. That's going to be the problem, because they're going to want to fight for that last dollar as much as they can. Because the model you just described is the same, like for our audience. I'll break it down very simply. It's the same as a strip club, right? You got to pay a cover to get in. Then you got to pay a 2-drink minimum. Then you got to pay to go into the champagne room. And it's like, man, there's 4 different stages. And I just want to, like, the girl is already there. Well, I'm there. Can I just skip that? Maybe I'm not that thirsty. Like, can we just skip all those 4 processes and then just say, all right, great. Here's $20 for all of it. And let me go in the back room and then I'll leave. But those people are going to fight tooth and nail to get those last dollars. So that's the problem. I did like what Elon Musk did, as far as electric cars go, where he gave up all the patents and just said here, because I've always had this theory that Tesla itself didn't necessarily want to be a car company. They did to kind of show us the way, but their long-term interest is in the batteries themselves to sell to all the other cars that are going to go electric, which is why I think Elon Musk was like, take all the patents, who cares? You're still going to be buying the batteries from us.
It's kind of brilliant. I mean, that's why their gigafactory, their battery factory in Nevada isn't it the largest footprint building in the world?
Yeah.
Absolutely vast. And you're right. I mean, one thing, so at this moment, as we speak, there's not a car company left who has not announced that they are switching to electric, including General Motors is going 100% electric in the next 14 years. General Motors, this big calcified corporate conservative, slow moving, unbelievable. And one thing they're all going to need is lithium ion batteries for their cars. So Elon Musk is very smart to position himself as the battery supplier. Yeah,
he's going to be that dude. And, to be honest, and I've bickered with this with one of my producers, Giorgio, for a while over this. To be honest, I test drove that new Mach-E from Ford, and it looked and felt almost identical to a Tesla inside. And that model for Tesla goes for like 140. This one goes for like 52. And I enjoy. It's a third of the cost. Giorgio's piping in here. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just have one question for him. With speculating so far out for a lot of these car companies, do you think changes in battery technology will have a big effect on that? Like graphene technology, for example, like transitioning away from lithium ion. Like, do you think they'll even develop a car to use those batteries before the technology overtakes it?
Wow, you punched my button. Yes, I did a 2-hour special for Nova on PBS about this issue, about searching for the next battery. I mean, remember it used to be NiCad batteries. No one uses NiCad anymore. Now it's lithium ion, but lithium ion is no more, the end goal than NiCad was. There will be something else. And exactly as you say, right now, billions of dollars are being poured into new battery chemistries, new battery technologies. There absolutely will be something better than lithium ion. We profiled this one company near Boston. The guy's a Tufts plastics professor, and he has figured out, you'll tell me, Ross, if I'm getting too in the weeds here, but in a regular battery, there's the positive side, the negative side, the anode and the cathode, and they are separated by a liquid, a highly soaked liquid called the electrolyte that happens to be explosive.
Yep.
And that is why we have lithium ion batteries in cars that blow up and catch fire. They do all these things to keep those batteries not explosive. They measure the voltage and stuff, make sure it never gets too high. But the bottom line is these lithium ion batteries today have only a tenth the charge that they could have if we didn't worry about the explosions. So the lithium itself has a lot more power capacity. So this company in Boston has eliminated the liquid. they've got this permeable thin plastic to separate the two sides instead. And they're getting pure lithium batteries that last 10 times longer. And they're being descended on by Samsung and Apple and Toshiba and Toyota. They are all coming to this company to invest and all that stuff. And I've seen it in action. They gave me an iPad running one of their batteries and a pair of scissors and instructed me on camera to start chopping holes in the iPad's battery, which would normally result in fire and pain and agony.
Yeah.
And the thing kept going. In fact, I started snipping away at it like it was a paper doll until there was about a postage stamp piece of that iPad battery left. And the iPad was still on. It was just absolutely amazing. So yeah, absolutely. We're going to tell our grandchildren, in my day, we had lithium ion and you could go 300 miles and you have to stop. Yeah.
I won't. I definitely won't be saying that. But there's a lot of people that will, David. A lot of people that will. I want to get into your kind of obsession with Mac, because you wrote a ton of books. Like a ton. It was mind altering. I was like, oh my God. A lot about Mac, a lot about iPhones, a lot about Mac. Why Apple? Why do you love Apple so much? First of all, it's not totally true. I also have a Windows book that sells. So it's Mac OS, iOS, and Windows are the three books that I've been doing for years. But I'm looking at you have an iPhone book. You have, iPhone, the missing manual, iPhone Unlocked. There is a Windows 10 book. You're right. But I think that's to throw people off the trail. Let's be real. It's like, come on. You know what I'm saying?
I think the reason is that I'm not really a very technological person. Like, I like magic. I like things where the ugly stuff is hidden from me. I wave my wand or tap a button and something incredible happens. I can be in California and change my thermostat back in Connecticut from my phone. To me, that's magic. And I think Apple, when they started out with the Mac in 1984, and I was starting out in my life, getting out of college, I just thought I was swept up in it. A lot of people were sort of part of that Apple cult. There's kind of an us versus them thing going on too, right? Dog. Microsoft is evil.
If I get a green text from somebody, I know they're poor, and like it immediately separates friends. Where I'm just like, dude, we just hired a new CFO here for the media company, and he's still got a green text. And I was like, hey, dude, before this gets papered for the operating agreement, if I text you and say, hey, we're all done and ready to sign, and it's green, there's no deal. So we're getting rid of that because I can't deal with that bullshit.
I want a T-shirt that says that. If your text is green, I know you're poor.
I know you're poor. Like, don't. It's green versus blue. We've separated it. That's the real race war going on in this country. It's not blacks and white. None of it. It's just it's blue versus green. And what do you have? Because as soon as that text goes out and it's green, I'm automatically disappointed. I'm like, oh, God. Push that meeting.
Do we need to explain this reference for people who have no idea what we're talking about?
Yeah, iPhone users are blue, Android users are green, or whatever else you're using if you're still on a flip phone or anything else. Yeah. There is the only reason you don't want to murder the other person is there is some hope on the other end where you're like, oh, man, maybe they're so rich they just went old school and got a flip phone, which is what I did for a little bit. I had... That Razor came back. I don't know if you...
Yeah.
It was like $1,500. So the audience bought it for me on YouTube for my birthday. And,
oh, my God.
Yeah. So I have it in my bag, actually. And it's the best. It's the coolest. However, the data on it and the storage is like nothing. I can take like 4 pictures, and then I've got to delete everything. And I'm like, sweet. If they figure out the storage on it, fine, I'm all in on it. But if not, then I'll still be using an iPhone forever. But I think that's the last frontier where you're like, wait, maybe they're rich enough that they just have a flip phone and that's it, which I respect that.
Ross, I think you just didn't buy a small micro SD that you put in the phone.
No, I did. And I talked to the guy at the store and I said, hey, dude, is there any way I can bump this up from 256 to 512? And he goes, no, dude, it's a flip phone. I'll never forget him. He just judged me. And I turned to him and I go, did you just fucking judge me? I just gave you $1,500, dude, in cash for a phone. You just judge me on that? He goes, I'm sorry, man. We've sold like 2 of these things.
And
Dead serious.
Samsung just released the new Galaxy Fold V, which is a flip phone, a dual screen, flippable screen, which is pretty nice.
Correct. So now we're going to get into that, okay? Because Android does take better pictures. Can you agree with me on that? Like that one, I'll give them.
I mean, they both companies clearly have their concept of what a good picture is. You know, they both have algorithms that convert the brights and the darks and the color vividness. So I don't know. I think might be a matter of taste.
It might be. The other part of that matter of taste is there's still. I will say this too on that flip phone. Can you see it on the Zoom?
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's that new Razr I was telling you about.
Yep.
The first day I had it, I was on a phone call with somebody and I got in an argument and I just slammed that shut. My God, the power in that. I was beefed up, dude. I mean,
you can't do that with an iPhone.
No, you're just
shut for emphasis.
Yeah, you can't. You just kind of just mad push the button of like, It's just,
It's not the same thing.
No, it's not the same. Where you're just like, man, I really need a click off here, and just slam this shut.
How do we feel about the ones that turn into like a book with a big screen that folds?
Well, okay, so this is a perfect example. Like I think, and this I'll agree on, and I don't know who came up with this or why. This size phone because I got both of them here. I got iPhone and the Razr, right? Mm-hmm. Both the same size. And this is maxed out, right? This is the max. This is as far as you can go. I don't think you can get bigger than this because then you start to venture into iPad territory. Yeah. And I also don't want to hold a phone with two hands like I'm cradling a baby or a footlong at Dodger Stadium. Like I don't want to do that either. So this size they've agreed on is fine, but to be able to flip this in half and then put it in my pocket is a lot easier than just walking around with this brick in my jeans. Because you can see it in everybody's jeans, and we've all accepted it. No girls are looking at you going, is that an iPhone or is that his dick? It's always the iPhone now. So like we've all accepted it, and that's just part of your life and what you look like out. But I wish other features were different and they would meld the two. I have a theory on this, and this is what I wanted to ask you today too. I think iPhone doesn't do this shit on purpose because they make so much money on the slow rollout and these stupid bullshit little drops. Like the dongle to me is the worst invention of all time, where it was like, oh, hey, I'm not using your headphones anymore, but I know a lot of you love headphones, so we're going to make you buy this dongle for $6 that you can never find on any conference call ever. And you're just like, God damn, does anybody have a dongle? Somebody got a dongle, and then you're hunting and pecking for that thing. I don't want that. Apple's just doing this on purpose, right?
I mean, the headphone jack thing, it is true that inside the phone, the unit that accepts the prong of the old headphone jacks was like an inch square. It was a lot of room inside the phone that they could use for battery space or whatever. So the impulse was right. And yet other companies have managed to keep, like Google, not their flagship phone, but the lower end one still has a headphone jack. Yeah. And they still have the battery. Like somehow they figured it out.
Yes.
So that's what makes me a little suspicious is like, come on, Apple. I bet with your geniuses, you could have figured out a way to do that.
Well, don't you think when they purchased Beats for $3 billion, that was part of it, right? Where they were like, all right, if we can get everybody to switch to wireless and then the AirPods and everything else, we can just sell them that. They'll totally forget about that cord. And it's like, no, there's something safe about that cord. There's a reason why we have an umbilical cord at birth. There's something safe about it where it's like, oh man, if I drop it, at least I've got some little pullback there and then I can pick it up or whatever. Whereas if your phone falls out of the pocket, congratulations, it's over.
They did, to be fair to their money geniuses, they did launch the AirPods and make a serious hit product that brings in billions of dollars. So from a financial aspect, if you're cynical enough to think that they got rid of the headphone jack just to make us buy wireless headphones, they won.
They did. They did. The problem is I can't, like I wear Raycons. I have really big ear holes. I don't know if that's a birth defect or whatever it is, but I still, with the AirPods, never been able to find a pair that fits in my ear. It just falls out on the ground. I also don't like the little dangly thing. Looks like something about Mary. Looks a little spermish where you're just like, hey, dude, I mean, I'll still do a double take where I'm like, oh my God, yeah, I guess. Why not a better design on that thing?
You know, Ross, it may be time to talk to your doctor about antitragus. You and I both cannot keep AirPods in our ear holes.
Boom.
And 10% of the population, those of you watching on YouTube, you can see I'm missing the little flap right here. I don't have it. There's supposed to be a flap at the bottom that keeps the thing in, and I've never been able to keep them in. The AirPod Pros I can keep in because they have a rubber stopper that grips your ear canal.
Yep.
But the ones that are supposed to rest in the pocket of what do you call it, cartilage?
Yeah.
Those won't stay in, and you might be missing your antitragus too.
I'm not sure, but everything you just did towards the camera is now going to be on a fetish site in about a half hour. So congratulations. You're going to be picking up some new fans today, David. And that's
OnlyFans.
Yeah, exactly. You should do that on OnlyFans. Oh my God. You're the guy. And it's eargasms. That's it. And it's you, and it's just, oh man, how's he going to pose with that ear again?
I'm sure you guys will edit all of this right
out. No. All of this is live. We're live. This is what this is. This is all live. There's no going back now. I told you before we came on, like, yeah, this clip, somebody will chop this up and put that out there into the world. But yeah, man, this is going to be on a fetish site next to an Impossible Burger. Just you pulling your ear next to an Impossible Burger. And then super like the 78 degrees in the corner every single time for climate change. It's all going to be lovely. And we've all figured it out today, David. It's amazing. Do you get amped about these Apple events that happen like everybody else does? Because it always takes over my Twitter feed every single time, top 20. There is one tomorrow. Is any of this shit fun or exciting anymore? Oh my God, everybody behind camera, they love this shit.
New phone.
New phone for all of these guys. They're super amped about it. Yeah. Yep. Do you sit down around the computer and watch the old stream with Tim Cook?
Honestly, for many, many years, I wrote this New York Times column for 13 years. So I would go to that thing every year. And especially in the days of Steve Jobs, it really was something. It was a revival meeting and deservedly so. I mean, the time that he unveiled the iPhone, like back in the days when you could actually keep a secret from the public like that. I mean, people lost their mind. Remember, he's like, we're going to introduce 3 products today, an internet device, a phone, and a music player. And it's all the same thing. It was so good. These days, of course, all the low-hanging fruit is long gone. They've already invented the basic form of these things, and the leaks have been out there. So the surprise isn't there, and the revolutionary new products aren't there. The revelations they're going to make tomorrow are going to be much smaller steps forward. So I'm still, I do use a MacBook Pro, and I have an iPhone. So obviously I'm interested in anything to get better. Yeah. Just as I would if I were an Android guy. I still look forward to see what they come up with. I'm always wanting a better Zoom. I'm always wanting. I heard that they're going to do. They're introducing portrait mode, meaning blurry background photos for video. So with your phone, you'll be able to take something that looks exactly like 60 Minutes footage or something.
I mean, it's a depth sensor, a LiDAR sensor that's incorporated into the camera, and it basically judges what your face is with the AI and tries to blur everything behind it. I mean,
they're using it now in NFL games.
If you want to consider it like a Gaussian blur or a lens blur, like that you get from a shallow aperture, I don't really think it creates a very pleasing effect. But that's the camera nerd in me.
Same. I want to see the people behind them.
No. It's a really shitty blur. It's not a gradual fall off. So like what it'll do is it'll isolate and mask out the person and or their face, and then blur the background. But it's not a gradual fall off, and the blur isn't the same because like to be able to compute and compound that blur like in that way would be too much processing power. But it does whatever. I'm off my soapbox.
Ross, who's that speaking?
It's Giorgio. So Giorgio, you'll never meet a bigger Apple fan in your life, to the point where anytime on any of these shows that I do, if I say anything negative against Apple, no, they're our Lord and Savior. This is what we're doing now.
Not so much anymore, but that G4 MacBook was special. I remember when they switched over from PowerPC to Intel. I had my first MacBook from them. I remember when I could replace all the parts of it. Like being able to disassemble a computer and then put it back together and it turn on again was a really special feeling.
It is.
How about the M1, Giorgio? The M1 chip. That's really
I
something.
like it. So I was going to hope to talk to you a little bit about that, about
Actually, Giorgio, I tell you what, do this because come on camera and come sit in Dan's desk. And the reason why is this is exactly what you picture somebody to be amped about Apple events looks like. This, I mean, it's like out of central casting where you're like, oh, who's going to be amped about that Apple event tomorrow? Boom, there it is. Hair dyed blonde, some tribal tattoo. Like yes, dude, this is your audience here for Apple. Well, this is our producer, Giorgio.
I'm glad to be able to see you because like up until now, like your listeners should know, I'm looking at you over a Zoom and couldn't see Giorgio. So it was kind of like your conscience piping in.
Yeah, I mean, I just really excited to finally talk to someone who understands what I'm talking about. It's pretty nice. It's pretty lonely.
I get trashed every day for the Apple bullshit.
I'm telling you, tell them about 2010 being an Apple product enthusiast back then. It was a special time.
It is, but we're 11 years after that. We've all moved on with our lives. Either fold this bitch in half tomorrow, give me back the plug-in for headphones.
You're right, Ross.
That's what I want to see now.
No, you're right. Because they're no longer a personal computing company. They're a data credit card processing company. That's where they make all their money from. They don't care. I enjoyed what they tried to do with the Mac Pro and make something modular again that people could expand upon, except for it's $6,000 for the base model. So they outpriced everyone who could use it. And now everything's built on the chip, which is really nice. And it gives you a really powerful computer for $1,000 that outbeats everything else that they could put out. But I don't know. It's not special anymore.
Yeah, it's not special anymore, David. What would like tomorrow? Do you wake up and tune in? Are you in still?
I usually do watch them. Tomorrow I've got another thing going on, so I'll watch it on replay. I actually think the virtual presentations they do are much better than the live ones, just because you can fast forward, you can slow down, you can freeze frame, you can replay, and there is, I mean, you got a good view of everything because it's video, and we don't all have to fly to California. So I think it's a vast improvement. I hope they stick with it.
They probably will because that's their bread and butter. I've been waiting for that because everybody laughs at me. What is this, a 2013 computer?
Yeah, and it's great. It has all the ports that you love, and you want a 15-inch with the new M1 chip in it.
16-inch.
Or M1X.
Yes, yeah. I want the 16-inch with the... So that's what I'm waiting for. That hasn't come. I'm also waiting for this thing to flip or fold in half.
Global chip shortage, you're probably going to keep waiting.
Yeah, so let's get into that because that's what we keep hearing on everything, right? Dan and I have ordered trucks on this show for taxes and all that other stuff. There's a chip shortage for every single truck and car and everything else, along with computers. How do we beat that? We talked about climate change. How do we beat a chip shortage? What's your theory on that?
I don't know, man. I mean, obviously it was a pandemic-related thing, and it's just going to be a matter of time. Right now, I have to say I'm more concerned about a related problem, which is the labor shortage, which is people don't want to go back to work. And there's a couple I'm sure you've seen the restaurants don't have waiters, the flights don't have flight attendants, the doctor's office doesn't have an assistant, the hotels only have one person working at the desk, and it's. I don't know what the basis of it is. People say it's because the government was giving people checks they could live on, but that's ended now, right? So, but they're still not coming back to work. And other people say, oh, the pandemic gave service economy people a chance to look at how crappy their job situations were and the lousy pay and the awful manager. And now they've reconsidered. They're like, I don't want that to be my life. But in the meantime, the whole economy is sort of on hold. Well, there's no one to take these jobs.
Yeah, it's strange because we're hiring here and then we travel a lot for work, doing live shows around the country. And just got back. We were in Vegas a few weeks ago for that Conor McGregor fight. Now, Vegas at the time, no mask. You could do everything, whatever. Now they're back on mask. A lot of employees don't want to work in mask, and I understand that. You're in Vegas. It was about 118 when we were there. Walking around with a mask on, trying to serve people at the pool, while they're trying to listen to Avicii. That's a lot. It's a lot. It's a big ask, right? Where people don't want to do it. Me personally, I think I think those checks stopped like this month. Me personally, I think this has got to either go back by January or I think as a country, we're headed for a massive, massive recession because you're right. Trying to get people to work has been impossible. And then there's a shortage on every single thing we do, not just these chips, but beef and chicken. I got stopped at the grocery store here in Texas, and I'm in Texas, right? Texas is doing some crazy shit. Some I agree with it, some I don't. But I'm like, hey, this is rad. Let's figure it out. At least we have some sort of freedom, and I don't have to wear a mask every day. With that, I went in to buy chicken wings a couple weeks ago, and I got stopped at checkout, and they said, sir, you don't buy 2 packs. There's a limit on those. And you're going to have to go ahead and put that other pack back.
My God.
Yes.
Really?
Chicken wings. So what we've been doing is my wife and I, because she's a great cook. She's also like super into Traeger and smoking stuff. Her dream is to be on one of those, traveling food shows after the kids grow up and then never come back again. And I understand that. We've all got to have dreams in this world. She wants to be with like Chip and Joanna Gaines, like building like weird shit and smoking foods like out in front of their store down in Waco. And you're like, all right, great. What about me? And she was like, dude, you can just watch football all day. You're fine. But so with the wing thing, we have this thing with the kids. It's like Friday night wing night. She'll smoke the wings and everything else. We've had to go in shifts. So she can buy 2 and I can buy 2 packs. And that's enough for.
Oh my God. You're gaming the system.
Well,
you're right. The shortages, we ate at a diner over the weekend, my kids and I.
Mm-hmm.
And as we were checking out, I was asking the guy behind the register, so has the labor shortage impacted you? I shouldn't have asked. 15 minutes long was the answer. 50. We could not leave. He goes, listen, the last time I slept was yesterday morning. This is my restaurant. I'm the waiter. I'm the busboy. I'm the cook. I'm manning the register. I can't get supplies. And he pointed to a refrigerated case with all the drinks. Mm-hmm. And he's like, PepsiCo says we can't get any more Gatorade until January. Root beer, you can't get until well into the new year. Like you can't get it.
Yeah.
And he's like, we sell ribeye steaks, and we used to buy them for $10 a pound. That was like 3 months ago. Now it's $18 a pound. Every time someone orders the steak, I wince because I'm losing money on that thing. He goes, I don't know how this is sustainable. I don't know how it is sustainable. That guy's going to go out of business.
Yeah, I don't either. And everybody I talk to is in the same exact boat. Even us, we're hiring here. And to go through this process, talking to these people, and I used to think it was just Austin, right? It was like, all right, Austin's booming. You get higher rates for everything else. And then the more and more you talk to people across America, and again, we have the benefit of doing so many different live shows in all these weird cities. They're going through the exact same problems in small towns as well as big cities. And you're like, oh shit, our economy's fucked, huh? Like there's going to be a drop off at some point. I don't know when it's coming, but then it's going to force people to go back to work because everybody's going to be out of money. My theory on all of this is I think a lot of these people pre-pandemic didn't understand what unemployment was. They had never had the money. And then once they got it, they looked at their bank account and they were like, wait a minute, I'm working this part-time job and I'm making more money just by being unemployed and it's digitally just showing up in my accounts. Why should I go back? So I don't know what they're going to do about that because there's got to be some cutoff as far as unemployment because if you did work somewhere, you're eligible for like 9 months or something, right?
Yeah, but here's what I really don't get. I don't know if you saw the numbers last week from the government about unemployment.
Yeah.
Now, those numbers reflect the number of people applying for unemployment, right? Which means you can't find a job. You have to prove to the officer that you've been looking for a job and can't get one. So how can we both have a labor shortage and increasing unemployment? I don't understand.
There's 11 million or 10.9 million available jobs in America. If you're looking at what that report that was out about 10 days ago, there's plenty of jobs. The government's also incompetent. So the fact that running this on both sides, running these types of programs, it's super easy to fool somebody on a phone call or on a Zoom. It's like faking a cough as a kid. Mom, I'm too sick to go into school today. She's like, oh, yeah, you are. You sound terrible. And I was like, yeah, it's only getting worse, Mom. It's only getting worse. I'm feeling awful. That's where we're at with that. So I don't know how they're going to curb that either. But there's going to have to be some drastic overhaul or we're all screwed here. So
I do wonder. I mean, right now, everybody who is noticing this is like, boy, this is inconvenient. But you're right. There's something bigger and darker lurking at the other end of it. Like, it can't go on this way.
Yeah. The one thing, though, that I don't think is going to change is the housing prices. Because like you were saying, the more and more people that are working from home and everything else, you start to get comfortable. You start to say, all right, great, this room looks good on Zoom. Like, it appears as if you're somewhere in Rhode Island or maybe in Nantucket with your background right now, and that's beautiful. I don't know where you're from, but it's awesome. But you have a great setup. We're able to have a great conversation. If you were doing any facet of business, you'd be able to do it right from your own house. Therefore, I'm not sure what's going to happen to housing prices during all this, because if you are working from home and you're staying home and everything else, you just kind of want to get maybe a little bigger house with one extra room because you know you're going to be there longer, and that's helpful. So, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with housing within jobs. It's a tough one to call all the way around here, what's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you're referring to this big, I've heard it called the Great Reshuffling, where the pandemic made everybody realize they could work anywhere. And so all these like secondary cities, not New York and LA, but the smaller ones are having these gigantic real estate crunches where the house prices are going nuts and the sellers can ask anything they want. I did a story about this for Sunday Morning about a month ago. We spoke to a realtor in Houston who told me there was this one house that had 60 offers on it. And you know how the people who bought it got it? They offered full asking price, plus they bought the seller's new house.
Oh my God.
So they paid for two houses so that they could get the one.
That's amazing.
It's like insane.
Yeah, we just bought a big piece of commercial real estate land here. And it was, I think we were up against 5 people. There was no negotiating on any form of price, by the way. It came down to this older couple, and they just wanted to know who we voted for. And that's how they chose. So,
wow.
Oh, yeah. And when I went to shake his hand, he was like, you know, I checked, and I listened to your show, and you are who you say you are, and I appreciate that. And I was like, all right, let's rock, dude.
We are definitely living in some like freaky times. That I think we can all agree on.
Yeah, I mean, look, if Tim Cook comes out tomorrow and he just says, look, I've solved it. We're all in a sim world. And here's what level we're on. And here's what's going to happen next year. I'm all in for the Apple convention. I'll show up in Cupertino. I'll wear a black turtleneck. I'll do the whole thing. Like I'll do all of it. If he just tells me what sim world we're living in. Now's the point in the show we get to the Drinkin' Bro of the Week, which is someone who has inspired you or helped you become the person you are today. Who would you like to give the Drinkin' Bro of the Week to?
You know, I would like to give the Drinkin' Bro Award to a guy named Steve Ettlinger, who's the first guy. I was in my 20s. I was writing columns for a computer club newsletter, and he said, you ought to think about writing books. How'd you like me to represent you? He believed in this untold quantity and gave me a shot. And now I've written 120 books, but I never thought it was something an ordinary person like me was allowed to do. So
that's crazy. 120 books. That's your total.
Yeah. I mean, that includes like if I write, this iPhone book this year, and then next year I update it with the new OS, that's counting as 2.
Oh, gotcha. Because I was like, man, I've done 4, and it's like climbing a mountain every time. Every time I'm like, I'll never do this again. It's so hard. Man, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the computer books are especially awful because, I mean, they have the shelf life of milk. You know what I mean? Like you have to, they're on the market for 9 months, and then Apple comes up with a new thing and you have to rewrite it. So,
well, the good thing is, do you get paid to rewrite it? Like, are there advances for that? Of like, hey, dude,
yep.
Come back in. Oh, well, then
you're a new advance.
No wonder you love Apple. Shit. The way they update things and try to make it sexy, it's like, yeah, hey, 3 months later, you get to write another book. And you're like, ching, ching. Because books are lucrative.
The gravy train has ended, by the way. I just tweeted 2 days ago that those missing manuals, that they have now been discontinued. I'm done in that business. No more Pogue computer books, because guess what? People don't buy them. You can learn anything you need from YouTube. Computer book sales have been crashing for years, and now it's to the point where the publishers don't think it's worth doing.
Yeah, so. They don't want to hear it anymore.
End of an era.
Last question for you. We're all fans of CBS Sunday News, obviously. What's the craziest story you ever worked on there?
Wow. The craziest. Well, I did a story about the end of the space shuttle program. And this isn't the craziest story, but it was the craziest shot. I had this idea that I would deliver the ending speech, which is something like, and so as the Endeavour lifts off for the last time from Cape Canaveral, NASA looks forward to the same place the rockets are going, onward and upward. Anyway, it was 17 seconds long. And I had the speech, and I had this idea that we would do it timed to the rocket taking off behind me. And the producer is like, are you nuts? You miss one syllable and the shot is gone.
Yep.
And I'm like, let me do it. So I practice and practice and practice. And then he goes 5, 4, 3. And I pulled it off, only to be accused later on Twitter of having used a green screen, by the way.
No way. So it did go down for you.
It actually worked. You can see it on YouTube. Yeah,
that's amazing. Because when I was watching Bezos lift off in the cock rocket, another network had tried to do it as well. That thing was well past him, and they're like, "Yeah, no, we're gonna have to patch you into the other feed, Susie. He's gone, but it's a big step for men and people." And she was just totally lost at that point, and the thing was gone, and like you didn't see him. That's a ballsy move. Good trying to time that up in real time.
Yeah.
David Pogue. Ross Patterson is proud to have you on today. I wanted to get one more third person for you. The book is called How to Prepare for Climate Change. It is out now. You're a great guy, man. Thanks for being here today. There you go.
That was super fun. I laughed hard, man. Thank you.
Where can everybody find you on social media and all that stuff?
My last name is Pogue, Pogue. And so I'm on Twitter at Pogue, and my website is davidpogue.com. And since we're a podcast, I should mention that October 15th, CBS News is launching my podcast.
Are they really?
It is called Unsung Science with David Pogue, and it's the behind-the-scenes stories of the great science and technological achievements, like how they landed the rover on the Mars without disturbing any dust, and how the mRNA vaccine was developed, and stuff like that. So really fun, fully produced stories where we find the creators and find out what went down.
Oh, that'll be awesome. Really looking forward to that. And it's fun to talk to all these fascinating people on a day in and day out basis.
I'll bet. I mean, sure beats working, right?
Yeah, exactly. Now I get to spend the next 2 hours on a call with a lawyer. Love you, David. Thanks for being here today.
No wonder I seem fun by contrast.
Oh yeah, easily. There's an aluminum shortage, so I got to deal with the seltzer crisis right now. We've got our own seltzer coming out in like 5 weeks, and they're like, "You need to buy more cans." Yeah, and I'm like, "Why? Shortage, man." And I'm like, "Great. Is there anything there isn't a shortage of? Can I just buy you and we call it a day? Because I feel like I should own you as a human if I'm paying you that much money now." It's a blast, David. But
so much fun.
Thanks for being here. Great guest. Check out his book and check out his podcast when it comes out. For David Pogue, I'm Ross Patterson. This is the Drinkin' Bros podcast. Good night, everyone.